Hi all, it's Linda here from Erica Michaels Designs, and it's time to do some show and tell for the fall. I don't know about you, but I love stitching in fall colors. It's just a wonderful color palette, and it's great to design with. And so I'm going to show you a little bit of that. Two designs are great for just fall, the whole season long. I have two others for you folks who love Halloween. And lastly, I have a little something for Christmas coming. So sit back for a few minutes and we'll get started. First of all, for fall, I have one that I've called Abundant Autumn. The word abundant or abundance to me is a great descriptor of the autumn season, and so that's kind of what I went with here. It's basically kind of a little mini sampler. This is done on 30 count linen, so you can see the size. If you wanted to do something on a higher count linen, it obviously would be a little smaller, and maybe even small enough for a pin pillow, depending on your fabric count. But we have abundance, and then rustling leaves, harvest, changes, pumpkins, and gratitude. All of those are words that come to mind for me during the fall season. And so these are all sprinkled in with lots of pretty colored leafy fall motifs. Also here you'll see is a pretty clay, some maple leaf button from Just Another Button Company. And that one is included in your chart pack. It's finished onto a 141 Design Company cutting board called Shelby that I've painted in this rusty red color. And then I've just twisted some twine and added an acorn charm that I had there at the top. So that's the little sampler for Abundant Autumn. And you know there's a berry. It's also stitched on the 30 count linen. Both pieces are in the chart pack. This berry features the word gratitude, and then bands, just little mini bands of those harvest motifs that were used in the sampler, in addition to a squirrel, right? The top here, I really like how this one turned out. This is actually my base caps. The base cap here is this darker green wool, and I cut another cap out of the tan colored wool, which is Palomino, I think, from Weeks Dye Works, but I cut it a little bit smaller so that when they were laid and stacked on top of each other, both colors show. The other thing that I did is I did tack it before applying to the berry. I did tack the smaller cap to the base cap just a little ways around. It's not sewn down, it's just tacked at what I call these inner points, right? And then there are a couple, a little hard to see because of the pins, but there's some small leaf shapes cut here. Those are also tacked down before I put everything on the berry. So all of that, and then there's a small bow out of this pretty ribbon from Lady Dot, and that is also tacked down to the center of the cap. And all of that is assembled first before the entire cap is attached to the berry. And then once it's attached, you can add these pins, which come from Just Another Button Company. And I have added, just for some extra detail, what I call jelly roll pins. These are little thin strips of wool that are rolled up tight like a jelly roll, with a simple pin inserted through them, and they add nice detail and texture to your berry tops, your pin pillows, whatever you like. So this There's kind of it looks like there's a lot going on, but when you think of it in layers, it's not nearly as complicated, right? So this is Abundant Autumn, both pieces, and it includes the pretty little clay pin, or excuse me, button that you can attach to the sampler. That's Abundant Autumn. The next piece that is strictly autumn in feel is what I'm calling Grateful Hearts. And this is another small sampler. Gather with Grateful Hearts. And it's just a row of trees. Each one is a different fall color. And there's also 4, count them, 4 squirrels gathering their way through the trees. I've stitched one of them black. The others are kind of your typical brown. You can make your squirrels any color you want depending on what you maybe have in your own neighborhood. And then a pretty fall leafy border across the bottom. Now I have to tell you, when I had finished this, it is a great size for a pin drum. Almost went that direction, but part of it was timing. And part of it was, I gotta be honest, I love drums, but they're not my favorite thing for finishing. But for those of you who like to do drums, this one is a really good size for that. This is stitched on 36 count ginger snap linen from Needle Bling. So any pretty warm golden tone that reminds you of fall, that makes these pretty fall colors just pop, right? So that's the little sampler or drum. And I've added a berry. And this berry doesn't have necessarily a feature to zero in on. It's more of a pattern, overall pattern, and it's just leaves, just the pretty autumn leaves in those pretty colors. They're just stitched all across the berry. Some of them are just little filler leaves and some are larger. But it just makes a really pretty berry. And here's the base cap. The next layer is just a circle of wool, but again, it's cut with pinking shears, which adds nice texture. 1 or 2 little leaf shapes from just a scrap of mustard colored wool. I always tell people, keep all those scraps of wool because you never know when you're going to need them for just something like a small little leaf, right? And then there's a bow out of the pretty rust colored ribbon from Lady Dot. And then I've added 1 larger gold pin in the middle, but then I've also added gold-headed straight pins. That's all they are. Just a straight pin all the way around. Now the pins are not what's holding it to the berry. I did still take stitches and attach the cap at these inner points, and the pins are just added as an extra little zip of embellishment, completely optional depending on how you like your look and how you want to do your finishing. So this berry is part of Grateful Hearts. Okay. So both of those, Abundant Autumn and Grateful Hearts, great for all season long, especially if you're one of these people. If you're like me, I want to kind of hold my Thanksgiving, fall, autumn stuff through Thanksgiving. I'm not one to start all the Christmas stuff until Thanksgiving has passed. And so it's nice to have those things that can go all through the season. Now for you folks who love Halloween, I have a couple of fun ones for you. You know, I've been doing a series of little smalls that are cartouches, which is a little border. It's an embroidered enclosure or border and a word that maybe describes the season or what we're doing. Well, I wanted to do some for Halloween. And so as I got to thinking about this, I'm kind of stretching maybe the definition of cartouche a little bit, but I'm still calling them cartouches. So this chart pack is called Graveyard Cartouches. And there are 4. And there are still these are still sort of borders. But what I've done is I've had fun, and you can Google these silly names, but have had some fun with the name on these little gravestones. So the gravestone itself is kind of the border or cartouche for the name within. And these are stitched on linen, 36 count linen that is from Weeks Dye Work. It's called Tin Roof, and it's kind of a grayish green. All of these would be great on some of those fun, very murky, dirty kind of fabrics that are good for Halloween kinds of things. You just want to watch that you have the contrast that you like with your floss. Speaking of floss, these are almost all 4 stitched primarily in DMC 310, okay? But there are some details, and they're kind of subtle. In this particular one, you can see that there are some details that I've done in a dark gray, okay? And then each of these, I have added what I think of as a mossy green. I believe it's lily pad from Weeks. Yes, it's the green called lily pad from Weeks Dye Works, and it's just a mossy green. So you think about the moss on some of these old tombstones. And there's a border stitch. You can do these with or without the border. It's completely up to you, but I like the little accent and detail that it adds. So we have I Am Gone. We have Pearl E. Gates. We have Rest in Peace. And we have Ricky D. Bones. And the little green border is a little bit different on each of these. You can do the same one, or you can do the different ones like I've done them here. Completely up to you. These are also really good options for just like a flat fold ornament finish or perforated paper, right? And you can age and use some like stamping inks, and you would be able, I did that a little bit. It turned the white into a very pale gray. And the new vinyl perforated paper does seem to take these inks just as well. And so you would be able to take the paper and, make it really whatever kind of murky color that you might want to do. Again, keeping in mind the contrast with your floss colors, right? I did these on little kind of lollipop sticks. So if you did these, you could just stick them all in something that you might want to include in a display. The other thing that you can do, and there's a small chart that illustrates this and has a few details with stitch count and that sort of thing, is you could stitch them just all in a row, and that would be fun too. So these are my graveyard cartouches, which I have finished into small little pin pillows. I think they're a lot of fun, if you're a Halloween fan, obviously. For finishing, I've just taken some narrow black rickrack and just tack that down all around the edges. Obviously, lots and lots of options for finishing these. You wouldn't have to do the shape, or you could do them, a little bit more following the shape, particularly if you're using the perforated paper. You could trim these down even a little bit more to the shape if you like. Lots of options. I love giving you options, right? So those are the graveyard cartouches. Now, the other Halloween piece are some berries. And I'm calling these trick-or-treat berries. And I put them in this little black tray. So so you can see them all together. This is done on, again, 36 count linen is kind of my sweet spot, so that's why you see so much of that for me. This is called Haunted, and it's from Picture This Plus. But we all know, especially if you're a Halloween fan, you all know there's some really fun colors out there of fabrics that you could stitch these on. Again, keeping in mind your floss colors. If you need to maintain contrast or maybe switch out one or two colors just to make your colors work so nothing disappears on your fabric. But I think there are a lot of great fabric options for these. So we'll look at them individually. First we have Hocus Pocus. So we've got, it's a little bit of a word play. So we've got Hocus vertically, Pocus horizontally, and we've got 1, 2, 3 black cats, and there is a spider hanging down from here that comes into the middle of the O. And so that's Hocus Pocus. It's got the black cats. Then we have jack-o'-lanterns, right? And this is just what they are, jack-o'-lanterns spread all across the berry. There are a couple little bats flying around there, but it's primarily the jack-o'-lanterns. And then the third berry is Trick or Treat. Trick vertically, treat horizontally. And we have a little ghost trick-or-treater with his little pumpkin bag. We have a little Frankenstein and a little princess trick-or-treater, each with their little pumpkin bags. So those are the trick-or-treat berries. Now, you'll see that they look like they're finished a little bit differently, but actually they are finished basically the same. I've just switched up colors. So they all have a pointy base cap for which there's a template included. And that base cap has a circle of wool that pulls out one of the colors in the berry. And then there's a fun color of ribbon that's just looped in. And then I have some fun vintage buttons, black or very charcoal or something that I've used there on the top. And then all of these are also embellished with some fun Halloween pins from Just Another Button Company. So this Trick or Treat button uses the purple, and it's kind of a hot yellow-green color of ribbon. And all these colors are going to be spec'd out on the website, the chart pack, obviously, all those things. The Hocus Pocus berry, same black pointy cap, this time with an orange accent, purple ribbon, and on this one, more of the berries, the pins. This set of pins, it's called Monster Mash, and there are 5 of them in the set, so you could pin these anywhere you like on these berries. And then the jack-o'-lantern berry, again, the pointy black cap. This one is a very mossy green accent color of wool, the orange ribbon, and this is the one where I put the frog pin from the set. And they all have a different vintage black button, just one, whatever size you want to put on there. I think these are anywhere from 5/8 to 7/8 of an inch, something like that. The other thing that you'll notice is I'm still attaching the cap at these inner points, but in this case I've taken some black straight pins right there and I've added them in the middle. I did that for a couple of reasons. I just like the way it looks mostly. But the other thing that that does, it keeps the points of this wool, this felted wool, from just flapping around too much and just maybe getting worn or bent or that kind of thing over time. So again, we have all three berries, Hocus Pocus, Jack-o'-lanterns, and Trick or Treat, with their fun Halloween colors in the berry top treatments. All right, so in this release we have two that are your great, lovely general fall decor, and then two that are very fun for you Halloween lovers. Now, I'm definitely working on Christmas things, most of which won't be released until probably, I'm thinking early October, something like that. But I did want to throw one in there, right? This was a class that I did a couple of years ago at Hobby House in New York. And it's based off of an antique sampler that I have that's stitched all in red and green. Obviously, it's a Scottish sampler from 1740, I believe, quite old. And as I was stitching the reproduction, because it's all in red and green, it just reminded me so much of Christmas. And so I went back and I did an adaptation for Christmas. So we have a Christmas band sampler. And it looks like this. Now, what is different from a lot of samplers? I love marking samplers. I'm not one of those people that likes a great big giant house in the middle of every sampler. So I tend to have a little bit different collection than some others. But if you look carefully here at the top, you'll see these bands, and they're lovely. They're just geometric bands, but they're almost all of them either eyelets or patterns that are in what's known as a double running stitch. It's basically the technique used in black work, except this stitcher used red and green. I know this isn't for everybody, but I still want to share this outside of the handful of people that were in that class. So this adaptation from the original antique alters a couple of the bands so that we have some very small holly leaves here and another band here of some holly leaves that are a little bit bigger. And then this band here was switched around and I created a row of Christmas trees. And then it's 12 days of Christmas, and then I have named the various gifts. And the reason it's just basically arranged like this is still the general format from the antique. And you'll see a picture of the antique in the chart pack. There were some very large initials here, multiple alphabets, and more family initials all down through the sampler. So this follows that same kind of format, but it is featuring the text of the 12 days of Christmas instead, right? So that's what we have here, 1740. I've added here because it is the date of the original sampler, and then we have 1 through 12 in the numerals down across the bottom. So this is the Christmas band sampler. Again, it's not for everybody, but for those of you who are just kind of interested in trying something different, if you already love doing black work, you'll find that it's not really difficult, but some people might find it tedious. It's similar to backstitch. It's a kind of, but what you're doing first, and there are stitch diagrams in the chart pack, you're basically doing a running stitch, right? So if you do a running stitch, you're doing every other space on the chart first, and then you come back and you fill that in to create a solid line. That's basically what the double running stitch is you're making 2 passes to create whatever line in the pattern. And it really makes a striking piece. So also part of the class, we did several little outtakes, but one of them that I'm including in this chart pack is the berry. 4 out of 5 of my new releases have at least one berry this time. Who knew, right? So this one, what I have taken is some of the motifs, some of the bands, and I've just lined them up on the chart. And it makes for a really pretty berry that, again, doesn't have that one featured motif, but just makes a really pretty overall look. And in this case, again, the base cap with a circle of wool. Again, I've done 2 bows here because I wanted a little more fullness to the ribbon. There is another jelly roll pin, and then you'll see some other red head straight pins, right? Pretty basic berry finish there. The other thing to keep in mind about this particular berry pattern is when I charted it in a full rectangle. So the outline of the berry is still superimposed on that, but I charted it as a full rectangle because if you would stitch it as a full rectangle, it would be a mini band sampler. It would be just a portion, something like this, just a portion of it. So if you don't want to tackle the big one, you could do the little one and get a feel for that double running stitch and how you like it. And it would make a pretty pin pillow. It would also make a really pretty needle roll, you know, where you sew and then you leave a little end, little ends on each end, kind of lets it flare out, tie it with ribbons, that sort of thing. That's another option with the charting for this berry. So this is a Christmas band sampler. Be sure and let your shops know if you want these. The plan is to release these starting shipment to my automatics on August 15th. I'll make a note, August 15th. I am not exhibiting in the upcoming Needlework Marketplace online show. So your shops don't have to wait until then to order and get these in and all that sort of thing. They can order anytime. So be sure you let them know. 5 new things. I'm going to start shipping on August 15th, and I hope you love it all. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.